Can I get a witness? Apparently not. The defense rests. Dyze in Your House. Wacky Wednesday.
Nobody likes me. Nobody likes me. But that's okay, cause I don't like y'all anyway. And I don't like y'all anyway.
When I used to joke about rising fascism in America and the fall of democracy, I really thought I was being, like, over the top.
Staten Island niggas still puffing the dust blunts.
Representing Staten Island. I mean, like, all kidding aside, I'm a high school dropout. I never thought the words autocracy and kleptocracy would be in my vernacular. I just never thought that that would be a thing.
Staten Island niggas still puffing the dust blunts.
It's very, very difficult and frustrating to have progressive ideology living on Staten Island, or as I call it, North Texas. Example, your weed dealer pulls away and he's got a Trump Pence hat sitting on his back windshield. This is real life. Representing Staten Island.
Staten Island niggas still puffing the dust blunts.
The most important thing you can do for me listening to this podcast is to not get sidetracked with distractions and nonsense. There is a person occupying the Oval Office who has committed crimes every single day of his life. And the only way to combat this is not to look at polls, it's to go vote in November.
Staten Island niggas still puffing the dust blunts.
Representing Staten Island. Want to hear a little story about some of those people who are going to be voting in November? I'll tell you. People that value guns over children. People who think the South will rise again. People that think ending slavery was a failed experiment. White nationalists. Representing Staten Island.
Staten Island niggas still puffing the dust blunts.
Be a part of ending the rise of fascism and the fall of democracy in America by keeping it locked to East Coast Radio, Dyze In Your House, and hit the polls in November.
Hey, yo. Who's in the house? Dyze in your house. What goes on, peeps? What is the word? It is a Wacky Wednesday edition here on East Coast Radio of Dyze In Your House. Here's what we do. We have East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. The fascist regime rising in America is so corrupt. There's so much corruption that not only are we am I, Jay Porks, lucky enough to have a podcast on the Dare Podcast Network every Monday that comes out called the Jay Porks Podcast. We usually go about 100 minutes there, and we talk about all the corruption going on. But that wasn't enough. It wasn't. So we had to start over here on the East Coast. We had to start our own channel dedicated to more. So we started a podcast called Dyze In Your House. And that takes place on Fridays. You might notice this is not Friday. We're getting to that. Dyze In Your House takes place on Fridays. That's usually the pre-show, the post-show, the prelude to the long-form Jay Porks podcast. Dyze In Your House is usually around 20 minutes or so. We try to keep it there. We keep it concise. We don't do edits. I don't cut anything. I just go. I don't read anything. And that's how we do it, because we needed more time. Now, today is Wednesday because we needed more time. I don't want to be one of those guys. I don't want to be one of those people that does live streams every day from their living room. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't want, it's like if you print more money, it loses value. I don't want to put out a podcast every day and then the importance of, the impact of my podcast get diminished, because I have 3 a week. But sometimes there is too much going on and we got to talk about it. And you know what the problem is? The problem is that, by the time I record, by the time my podcast goes out, by the time I'm able to get it out to you, the news cycle has already been usurped by something else. And that happened again this week. And what happened was on Monday, we tried to put out the J Parks podcast on East Coast Radio. The problem with that is it goes through YouTube. And since it goes through YouTube, and we opened up with a 1.5-minute snippet of the new Alice in Chains song from their YouTube account, and we don't make money off the podcast, and we promoted it, and I said, hey, this is the new Alice in Chains, that was blocked in all countries. So you didn't get the J Parks podcast until Tuesday night, and that is my bad, because I'm not able to do that. But if you go to all my social medias, J Parks, if you go to J Parks on Twitter, at East Coast Radio on Facebook, at East Coast Radio on Twitter, all that stuff, you'll see, the links to go to patreon.com/JParks. Please, guys, you need to become a East Coast Radio head, because it is August 15th, and I haven't worked 1 hour of work since June 13th, and I have just today received my first unemployment payment. I know you think that's crazy. I do too. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. Anyhow. So you become a East Coast Radiohead. There's tons of stuff that we're going to be doing. I want to do a lot of bonus content, a lot of behind the scenes. You see what, I'll set up a camera here. You see what goes into, making the podcast. You will get personalized artwork every month. You will get shout-outs on the podcast. You will get input. And there is a tier that involves you actually, getting to talk on the phone with me or video chat with me or whatever. And we'll talk about, ideas. You tell me. You show me the seeds of corruption. Maybe I'm missing something. But I think I'm on it right now. Now let me clear something up right now. It is 3:49 in the morning as I am recording this. My neighbor is a police officer and definitely a Republican. So to that I say LOL and I'm sorry. But in all seriousness, it's 3:50 in the morning. I am putting this out as soon as I can. And the reason for that is that closing arguments in the Paul Manafort trial take place today. The defense, you may have heard the open. The defense of Paul Manafort called 0 witnesses. Think about this for a second. Now, the prosecution, I spoke about this on the J Parks podcast. Please go listen to it on the Dare Podcast Network. Please go listen to it. It's a day late, and I feel bad that I'm putting out another podcast, and I'm sort of usurping that. I'm not trying to do that. I'm doing what the news cycle does to me, but it's not my fault. I need to get this out there before the closing arguments take place, because once the closing arguments take place, something else is going to happen, and I have a feeling it's not going to be good for the Patriots. So let's just break down for a second Paul Manafort's trial. This is not the collusion, Russia. This is not the conspiracy against the United States. This is not that trial. This is his first trial, the tax trial. The trial where there were forms that said, do you have any foreign bank accounts? And he clicked and he checked no. Several years on tax forms. He defrauded banks. He defrauded banks out of money. He got loans. He got loans in exchange for promising somebody a job as the Secretary of the Army. Not that important of a job or anything. Only the leader of the biggest band of hired killers on the face of this universe until we discover more life. So anyhow, so this case is like a slam dunk case. They got a $15,000 ostrich jacket. They got, you know, the lady that handles the Yankees season tickets, you know, testifying. They got Paul Manafort saying he's got no money, yet having all this money. They have all of these lies, and they're all on paper. So it's what attorneys would call a paper case. It's almost a slam dunk, which is just too easy, you know? So this Judge Ellis, now you may have noticed, episode 237 of the J Parks podcast is titled, Is Judge Ellis Aiming for a Mistrial? Because I wonder that. That's something I wonder aloud. As I have to pause the background music for a second because it's trying to give me an ad, and I'm not going to play that ad on my podcast. But anyhow, Judge Ellis is being shifty. He's being shady. Not shady. He's like admonishing the prosecution a lot for a lot of what they're doing. And he's made statements during this trial like, you know, he said things like, you know, I wouldn't have appointed me if I was, you know, they shouldn't have appointed me. That's what he said. Because I don't behave, you know, this way or some, you know. He yelled at the prosecution for leaving a witness in the courtroom who wasn't supposed to hear another witness's testimony, even though the judge had previously allowed that person to stay. And the transcript showed that, and the prosecution was like, hey, but the transcript says... And Judge Ellis said, I don't care what the transcript says. This past Friday, there was a 2-hour recess, sealed. We don't know what was going on. We also hear that Judge Ellis was talking to jurors individually. I don't, if that's true, that's grounds for a mistrial. And that might be why the defense would not call any witnesses. Why would the defense even call anybody if they're just thinking, you know what? We're going to appeal on the grounds of this judge sucks, or we're going to hope for a mistrial, or we're going to hope for a pardon. And I don't know if you can pardon. I mean, these might be state-level crimes, but, you know, might be hoping for a pardon. A pardon is an admission of guilt. So then if you accept that pardon, but then you can't, then the pardon doesn't apply to state crimes, and then you've already, that you've already admitted guilt to, that might actually be bad for you. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not Ari Melber. I'm not even Nick Ackerman. I am Jay Parks. Anyhow. But another reasoning, another like side of the reasoning, a different point of view would be, well, the defense wouldn't call anybody just to, you know, say deep state. They wouldn't call anybody to say, like, you know, 13 angry Democrats or whatever, or 17 angry Democrats, according to, you know, the letter Q is the 17th letter in the alphabet after all. Oh, what a bunch of nuts we are. No, but in all seriousness, it's an interesting tactic that they couldn't find one person to articulate deep state, or maybe even say that Paul Manafort's a nice guy. They couldn't find one charity this guy gave to. They couldn't find one person to pretend that this guy Paul Manafort gave to some charity. They couldn't find some therapist to claim that Paul Manafort has some disease that, you know, means that he can't control the things he does. They no Hail Marys, no nothing. So the defense of Paul Manafort, his defense team, his legal team, which is racking up millions of dollars worth of fees right now, working overtime, is just hoping for one of three things. They're hoping that this guy Judge Ellis is so crazy that he's going to cause a mistrial by intimidating jurors himself, by reminding them that Paul Manafort is innocent until proven guilty on all these charges you see on paper right here, all these forms. Ignorance is not a defense. That's why the no collusion thing doesn't work. No conspiracy. We didn't know about the meeting. We're not politicians. That's why that doesn't work in a separate arena. And that's why you not filling out those forms fraudulently consecutive years, multiple years in a row. That's, you can't say, oh, well, I didn't know. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. That's why I didn't fight for that's why I didn't go to a hearing for my unemployment. Because they would probably, they would tell me, oh, you didn't do this, this, and this. And I would say, oh, I didn't know. And ignorance is not a defense. So I would have wasted my time. Mistrial. They'll appeal on the case that and rightfully so, that this judge sucks. I might agree with them on that. Or it'll be Pardon City. We'll see what happens. But I just want to let you guys know that it is 3:57 a.m. as of recording. I am probably going to be able to get this up and on the internet by 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So by the time Wednesday is over, this podcast will be old news. So I just want to say that I know that. I understand that. But I just with all of the with my podcast, with me violating copyright laws and not being able to get my podcast to you on Monday, I feel like I needed to come to you today before closing time happens. And that's what it is. It's going to be closing time, like the Semisonic song. You ain't got to go home, but you can't stay here. I know who I want to take me home. See, I would play it, but then, we'd get taken down. No, to be honest, in all seriousness, this is the YouTube channel I use for East Coast Radio. Sometimes I accidentally upload concert videos to there too. To that one too. So I have my So recently I have my Rob Zombie videos up there. Rob Zombie and Marilyn Manson. But since I violated copyrights, I may have gotten a strike, which is scary, and I don't want one of those, because sometimes I upload concert videos, and the concert video I have up there that is the most popular is Chris Cornell with his daughter doing Redemption Song, and it has 30,000 views, and I can't lose that. So we're gonna not play new music on the podcast anymore, unless we know that bands are cool with it. I'll just play the Meat Puppets all the time. I really don't care. Okay, guys, keep it locked to East Coast Radio. Follow at East Coast Radio on Twitter. After this podcast, you are going to hear the commercial for Patreon. But follow East Coast Radio on Twitter. Keep it locked for a brand new edition of Dyze In Your House coming this Friday on East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. J Porks, Dyze In Your House. Hey yo, J Porks here, back to recording my own commercials. And here's the deal. You may have heard me complaining on today's podcast or a previous podcast about suffering through a summer of unemployment. Well, we have a fix for that, and it is called Patreon. That's right. East Coast Radio now has a Patreon page, and all you need to do is go to patreon.com/jporks, and there are 3 tiers that you can subscribe to, 3 tiers you can join to become a member of East Coast Radio, of the East Coast Radio community, of Porks Nation. You'll even have a chance to pick the name and all that stuff. And we are not offering just thank yous and shout outs. We got bonus content. There is even a tier where you are able to talk to me on the phone every week. And we will go over what is happening in our country. And you could personally talk to me, J Pork. Personal interactions. There's a tier where there's a group. You can join a group, and you could affect where the podcast goes that week. I need a community. I need help. Not necessarily money, but I need people to be helping me out. So therefore, that's why I created a Least Coast Radio Patreon. Not to be confused with a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter. This is not me with my hand out. I have bonus content. Bonus content to offer you. I have tons of it. I have tons of time, and I want to give it to you. All you need to do is join us on Patreon. Become a Patreon. Patreon.com/jporks. Look for the Least Coast Radio Patreon page. You'll see me. You'll see me with a microphone and Dyze in Your House next to the name. You'll see that. So just go hit us on Patreon. You will get a thank you. I will know that, and you will have a lot to do with what goes down on the J Porks podcast and everything concerned with Least Coast Radio. It's going to be a big year for us. 2018. Let's get it done.